this season on Storytime. I have a confession to make. I once made a small fortune financing the international smuggling ring. As in, I bankrolled the import of dangerous contraband into the country. Don't look at me like that. It wasn't drugs or guns or anything like that. It was Kinder Eggs. We all get hassled by door-to-door Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormon missionaries, and tinfoil hat-wearing street preachers from time to time. But when you're very public about your atheism, well, you might as well be wearing a target. I can't go to a bus terminal or a subway station or a public restroom without someone trying to convert me to their religion. And yeah, maybe rationality can save those who haven't been swayed yet, but those who have joined with the crazy are lost causes. Unless they are one of those rare few who became evangelical Christians to chase after a girl and got out when they realized they had zero chance of getting laid. I actually knew someone who did that. It really fucking confused me even at the time. Just a few months before he went off to join a right-wing religious cult, he helped me defend my college campus from a right-wing conspiracy theorist political cult. And now the conclusion. If you were on a college campus from the mid-1980s to early 2000s, in the Washington, D.C. Baltimore corridor, you couldn't help but run into one of the zillions of political front groups created by Lyndon LaRouche. One of my favorite Simpsons lines ever is from the Treehouse of Horrors 7, during the Citizen Kang segment, when Homer says, "Oh no, aliens, bioduplication, new conspiracies! Oh my god, Lyndon LaRouche was right!" Why is that funny? Well, trying to unpack the insanity of Lyndon H. LaRouche Jr. could take up a whole series of videos. If my channel was monetized, it would get demonetized for discussing half of it. The basics: LaRouche seemed to think that Reaganomics was a tool of the devil, and yet didn't go far enough. That all Catholics are servants of the devil, but John F. Kennedy was one of the greatest presidents of all time. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Well, alone with help from the Russians, the Cubans, the Mafia, and British bankers. By British bankers, he meant the Rothschild family. By the Rothschilds, he meant Israel, and by Israel, he meant the Jews. If you disagreed with anything LaRouche said, you were a drug-peddling Satanist commie agent working for the Queen of England and her secret assassination force, aka the Illuminati. If all of this seems nonsensical, it should. He started off as a hardcore socialist. This changed in the late 1970s. I guess he liked socialism for the first few albums, but once they made top 40 radio, he thought they sold out. So he went on to become a jackbooted fascist cult leader. Don't take my word for it. LaRouche sued NBC over their reporting and lost. When NBC won a countersuit, LaRouche claimed he couldn't pay due to lack of funds. How do I fit into all this? Long story. I had to get on Facebook and message a lot of my friends from way back when. None of them have a clear recollection of the order of events. The overall consensus is it happened like this. They just sort of showed up on our campus. At first we thought they were harmless crackpots. My friends and I were perfectly willing to ignore them. But things sort of happened to make that impossible. Their news outlet, the New Federalist Papers, started calling games like Dungeons and Dragons an instrument of the devil, and video games a chief cause of violence. I was vice president of the college gaming club, so you know how I feel about that. Those are stigmas both hobbies have faced for decades. The truth is, we were just a bunch of 18 to 30-somethings who wanted to have fun. After people got used to them having a booth on campus, they took over a room. No paperwork, no nothing. They just took it over every Wednesday for 3 weeks. They were across the hall from the security office and no one fucking noticed. As for what went on in these meetings, well, I only have a second-hand account. I wouldn't ordinarily rely on that, but this comes from Matt, a guy who I think most people watching this would find to be a million times more trustworthy than I am. I don't know how he got suckered into going, nor do I really care. It isn't that surprising. This was back when he was still sort of center-right. Now, Matt said the first thing they did was show him their newspaper, if you could even call it that. Most birds would refuse to shit on it. Then they played LaRouche porn videos, propaganda. He saw firsthand how nuts these people were and came out really pissed off. I don't know about the other game masters, but after their second meeting, we had people show up at my games to troll us. My games might have been an easy target since my first game started at 2:30 p.m. on Fridays. That's because I was a player in an 8 p.m. game. There was a D&D game in the other room, but it was far too crowded. It had close to 15 players a week and maybe 30 players overall. Me, I was lucky to get 5 people and capped my games at 7 players. These people entered the room, started taking notes, and not saying anything or playing. It was like they were looking for any reason to get us shut down. It wasn't like we didn't already have trouble with student activities. We required rooms on campus for club activities 5 days a week. 5 times more than most clubs. Of course, most clubs had 5 members at most. The gaming club had, when we tried to do a head count, about 50 to 60 members running a total of 20 different tabletop games. I don't know what the LaRouche were looking for, but apparently they didn't find it. Rather than encourage violence, my DC Superheroes game would give out villain points for, say, a hero initiating killing combat. The session they sat in and watched didn't even have any combat. There were 4 parts in my adventure where it very easily could have, but the players found a way around it. We didn't have any sacrifice to Satan, nor any literal, metaphorical, or figurative baby eatings, and no orgies. Just an interactive story where a group of novice superheroes try to solve a seemingly minor crime and having it become increasingly obvious that it was tied to something far bigger. However, the LaRouche troupe kept pounding away. Soon after that, 3 religious clubs, which had gladly shared pizza with us at interclub meetings, started spreading all sorts of outrageous rumors about us. Parents groups started to complain, which was bad because while only student and staff club members were allowed voting rights, our club was open to students, staff, alum, community members, and their families. We had a few players who were under the age of 18. Granted, they needed parental permission to be in certain games, but more often than not, they got it. All of a sudden, the parents became reluctant to let their kids attend. Then the LaRouche tried claiming they reserved my room on a Friday when they hadn't. They weren't a student organization, so they would have had to rent the room. We asked to see their receipt. What they presented was a form from student activities, signed by no club president or officer or staff sponsor. It was stamped but not signed by the head of student life. But without those signatures, it was invalid. I went to get security. Not with the call box. I hopped across the hall to another game room. That's right, 2 or 3 of our club members were security staff. Of course, once the LaRouches got caught, they tried to have security guards fired. It was a standoff as the security guards threatened to call the cops and have them cited for criminal trespass. Plus, these minions of LaRouche broke the first rule of not being stupid. Don't be an asshole around a reporter. I wrote up an op-ed piece on the whole incident. I remained as unbiased as possible, which I admit wasn't very. But in this case, the facts have an anti-psychosis bias. After that, we set up a counter booth right where they usually set up. We published our own newsletter with over-the-top stories in it. My favorites included that Lyndon LaRouche was the byproduct of an illicit affair between Sasquatch and Queen Mary, or that his beloved Verde pitch, A above middle C at 256 Hz, was his signal to his father's family to come take him back to Venus, where he would assume the form of a giant man-eating spider. On top of that, Matt brought his boombox. No, he didn't hold it above his head and play In Your Eyes. We came up with a playlist guaranteed to piss them off. Fatboy Slim's Illuminati, The Beatles' Revolution, Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, and of course, the Stonecutters song from The Simpsons. Our counter-protest sorta worked. After doing it for about a week, they left for a few months. But they came back. In a bit of an anticlimax, some emo kid set fire to their booth for using a slur to describe his sexual identity. But I encountered them again in Baltimore. Not just more LaRouchians, no, the same two people followed me to Towson University. Again, they annoyed me off and on for months. My community college couldn't do squat because they were just security guards. Towson University had not only security guards, but 3 uniformed police cadets, which meant they had arresting powers. Look, there's a reason I told the story about the Kinder eggs before this one. I had this, well, I wouldn't say friend exactly, but we hung out with a lot of the same people. She hated the LaRouchians just as much as I did. She knew this place that sold pot-scented air fresheners that often fooled police dogs. She had no money. I have loads of cash from the second Kinder Eggs run, more than I knew what to do with. I gave her $2. She got the air fresheners. The manufacturers weren't dumb. They didn't look like marijuana leaves. They looked like a bootleg pissing Calvin. It was a late 90s, early 2000s thing. Go ask your parents. I found out when security made their patrols. We got a third friend to pretend to be interested in their shit. We got the air fresheners into their bag of literature. Now, I'm not saying I caused them to leave forever, but I did see Simon the drug-sniffing dog go off on them, and none of the cops finding the not-quite Calvin in their bag. After that, I never saw them again. Don't know why. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. And ring that bell for more updates. And if you want to find out how to support the channel, go to patreon.com/ParityErrorFilms.